So what we're doing today is we need to replace the AC compressor on this 2011 Toyota Sienna. Never done one of these. It looks similar to the job I had to do on the Mazda CX-7. I think I put a video up on that one. Not real sure what the best way to get this one out is going to be. I did not find any write-ups or anything on it, so we're kind of going to go blind on this one. I think what we can do though is start by getting some stuff out of the way. It looks like you might could get it out the bottom, but I'm not sure about that, and I think we'll start off by going ahead and jacking this thing up and maybe taking that we might take that little skid cover off that's down there if it comes off easily, and that might allow us to see up from the bottom a little better. I don't know if the compressor will fit through the bottom. I do know I looked up on some older Siennas. They got to the AC compressor by removing the alternator, and so that may be the best route to go for this one. I don't think there's enough room between here and here though, so I was thinking through the bottom looked like a better option, but it may not be. I don't know how big that compressor is. It's hard to see. And my new one is coming today, so I don't have it yet to see the dimensions on it to see if it would fit basically between the radiator and that engine support that's down there, right there. So I'm thinking our best bet, just to give us some more room to work, is going to be to go ahead and take the at least the fans out. And I'm trying to decide if I just want to go ahead and take the whole radiator out. I was thinking just the fans, but it looks like to get the fans out I have to undo the upper radiator hose anyway. So if I have to do that, it may just be just as easy to go ahead and take the radiator out with it and just leave the fans attached to the radiator. I don't think we would need to take the condenser out, but I'm not sure about that. The other thing we've got here is that this compressor did not lock up. It is not building up pressure, or building up enough pressure. So it appears that the compressor is worn out. And so right now I'm hoping on that it has not sent contaminants through the system. Normally if a compressor locked up and failed, that means the bearings inside seized up, the compressor itself seized up. So it sends metal shards throughout the AC system. And so you need to completely flush the system out. If it's a parallel flow condenser, you need to replace the condenser, replace the dryer, stuff like that. If this thing just wore out, or say maybe, I think it has reed valves in it, maybe a reed valve broke or got weak, or something that did not send trash through the system, then the system should still be clean and keep us from having to flush the system and replace the condenser. And so I'm kind of hoping on that. Once we get the lines off, get the compressor off, we can drain the oil, see what the oil looks like. If it all looks clean, I'm not replacing the condenser and I'm not flushing the system. We'll just bolt the new compressor on, we'll pour the oil out of the old compressor, see how much oil's in it, how much oil we're losing out of the system by replacing the compressor, and then add that much oil back to the system, pull a vacuum, recharge with Freon, and go from there. So that's the step I'm going to take for this. You can disagree with it if you want, but my vehicle. So Yeah, but if I see anything that leads me to even slightly believe that this system has any kind of contaminants in it, then we will do it correctly, flush it, replace the condenser, replace the dryer, all that kind of stuff. But for right now, we are just going to replace the compressor unless we see things that tell us we should do otherwise. So anyway, if I go ahead and take the radiator out and I end up having to do the condenser, that gets us one step closer to getting the condenser out. So that would be helpful, and I think it'll just make the job a whole lot easier to have all this out of the way, plus not having to worry about damaging the radiator. You know, something slips, a wrench falls, all that, or anything, you know, could fall up against the compressor or fall up against the radiator. So if we get that out of the way, we'll leave the condenser in place. Maybe put a piece of cardboard kind of covering up the condenser just to make sure we don't bump it. But we'll get this grill out. It's got some little snap pieces on there. Get the grill out of the way before we can take this support out and get the radiator out. And we'll need to drain the coolant. Alright, I've got it jacked up. I'm about to drain the coolant. Went ahead and took this off. Like I said, now we're ready to drain the coolant. Gotta love Toyota. That Mazda I worked on was a complete nightmare. This looked like it was going to be as well, but Toyota actually designed this pretty well. I like how they did it. So I removed the 2 bolts and removed that little intake plenum. It's got these little clips that hold these hoses in. You just pop the hoses out of the clips. There's 3 of them. Once I took those 2 bolts out, that piece came out. And look at that starter. If you ever had to replace a starter, super easy to get to. But remove the 4 bolts for this radiator support. Then there's 3 that hold the hood latch. 1, 2, 3. Hold the hood latch on. There's a little clip you got to pop out that holds the hood latch cable. I left the hood latch attached to this upper support. Unplug the horns, both horns, and then the radiator is just sitting in there. So, and the condenser is actually attached to it. So what I'm going to do is leave it attached and just go ahead and unbolt the 2 lines that go to it. And I've got a whole slew of AC O-rings. So I should have some new O-rings that'll fit those. You know, they're the green ones that are made for AC systems. So I'll unbolt these and just pull the fan, radiator, and condenser all in one piece with the overflow bottle, everything. So we're just going to take the radiator hoses off. I'm going to drain the coolant first, undo the upper and lower radiator hose, undo the we'll have to undo the, looks like the transmission cooler lines, and then the lines going to the whatchamacallit, the fans. So let me get all that undone and we'll pull all this out. I need to look and see. I don't remember if this is a sealed transmission or not. I'm not seeing a dipstick, because I'm going to lose some transmission fluid when I undo the cooler. And I don't see where to add it back. So I'm going to have to do some research. This may be a sealed transmission. If so, it may have a plug on the side that we can remove and add a little more coolant back in it. Not coolant, transmission fluid. Oh, so if your system has Freon in it, you need to make sure you take it somewhere and get it properly evaporated. You don't want to release this stuff into the environment. I went ahead and took it and got it evaporated out from a friend. So You just don't want to be releasing that stuff into the ozone. So let's go ahead and drain the coolant, and we will undo the upper and lower radiator hoses, and then like I said, the fan wires and these two condenser lines, and then we'll go ahead and pull this whole assembly out, and that'll leave us plenty of room to easily get in there and work. Instead of working over like this, we'll be kind of working through there. Oh, to get the grill out, it's got those little push, kind of like these things. You just get under it and pop the center up, and then the whole thing pulls out. And it's got those, and then it just kind of clips into the bumper, so you can just kind of pull it out of the bumper. Coolant drain, it's that Toyota red. When I undid the transmission cooler lines, a few drips landed in there. That's what that is. But we're going to be putting new coolant in it, so I wasn't worried about that. I just lost a few drips from the transmission cooler, you can see right there, so I think our fluid level should be good, but it's got some burnt transmission fluid in it. We are going to need, I guess that's, yeah, just making sure it wasn't an oil cooler. It's got a red tint to it, but it's pretty burnt. We've had this car, I don't know, 15,000, 20,000 miles, and it had a hitch on the back, and so I don't know what they were pulling with it, or it still has a hitch on the back, but it could have been pulling a little bit of too much weight with it. Transmission works fine, but we will need to flush it, get some fresh Toyota transmission fluid in it. Looks like you can do it yourself. There's a drain on the bottom. You start it up and you pull the drain, and there's a plug on the side, and you shift it through all the gears and let all the drain on the bottom's got like a tube going up into the pan, you know, that's the right level, I guess. And so you I don't know, it pumps it, and as it pumps too much, it cycles it, and when it's too high, you know, it drains out that thing. And so you basically keep adding fresh fluid into it, which is overfilling it, but it's cycling that fresh fluid with the old fluid and running it out, and you keep doing that until you get fresh fluid coming out. And when it stops coming out, I guess, you put the plugs back in it, and it should be at the right level. So just kind of a quick overview on that, but that's sidetrack. So got the bottom hoses off. I just wanted to show y'all real quick that fluid mainly, and that I went ahead and plugged the two transmission lines, and that way they won't continue to drain out. You know, they just drained a little bit, a few drips on each side, and that's it. So we should be good on that. We will go ahead and remove this upper radiator hose, the fan plugs, and go ahead and pull this radiator out. Oh, almost forgot these two. And so far, all the work we've done on this, we've done with the 10mm. So one thing that's nice about this is with a 10 and a 12, you can do almost everything. I'd say 10, 12, 14, and a 14 seem to be the most common sizes on all these. This, whatever you want to call it, shroud on the bottom, it's got a bunch of screws all along the front, holding it to the bumper, and then across the engine support around the back, it's got quite a few. And so you just pull all those off, and you can get that out of the way. I wanted to go ahead and get it out of the way. It made draining the coolant easier, and getting to those bottom radiator hoses, I was able to do it from the bottom instead of trying to do it from up here at the top where you don't have much room to work. you know, that would have been hard to get all that stuff off, but real easy with it jacked up and that shroud removed from the bottom. So let's get these lines off, the hose off, the wires, and I'm going to pick up the radiator and set it out and go set it probably in the boat. Just try to set it somewhere where it's not going to get messed up. Alright, radiator's out. Now there's 3 little clips that hold the fan wire in, and then there's this little clip that holds the radiator hose on, cooler line. So you got to undo those, and then the radiator just lifts out with all that attached to it, which leaves us with all this open area to work on. Very nice. So I think our next step is actually going to be to remove the belt, and I don't think we're going to need to remove the alternator. We've got real good access right here to the compressor. We can start undoing the lines, and then it looks like maybe 4 bolts that hold the compressor itself on. So let's get the belt off, and now's a good time to replace the belt. So I did order a new belt, and so we're going to be putting a new belt on it when we go back together with it, and we will yeah, we'll get that off. Alright, way down in there, you'll see at the top there's an idler right there, and there with my wrench on is a tensioner, 14 millimeter. I've got one of these flat. You pretty much have to have one of these to do it. To do one of these, but you might could get in there with a boxed in wrench, but it'd be a nightmare. So I just release the tension, pushing it this way, slip the belt off. We're going to kind of leave it tucked in there so I can see the routing of it. So when we go to put our new one on there, we know how it came off. So I just slipped it off the alternator and the AC compressor, and I'm just going to leave my thing on there for right now. It's not hurting anything being on there. So now we can start undoing the lines and all these plugs on the AC compressor, and we can see it real well now that we've got a bolt here, we've got a bolt there, and looks like one down here, and probably one, yep, one right here. So once we get this line undone, take this bolt off and this bolt off, get these lines up out of the way, then we can start undoing these plugs, get all the plugs out of the way. Probably go ahead and undo the plug on the alternator here, try to see if we can get, well, yeah, get, no, probably won't have to. What we'll try to do, hopefully the way these will unplug to where we can just lay the wires up out of the way. Hopefully they come down here and then they don't continue. I don't know, it may plug in here as well. May have to, there's a plug right here, may have to undo this plug and get all these up out of the way. But quite a few plugs on this compressor. It looks like at least 3. So actually, let's see if we can just get these undone real quick. There's one. Might need both hands for that one. Yeah, I'm gonna need both hands for some of these. Well, there's 2. 2 undone. And then we've got another one of these wire loom clips. We may need to undo that, or it may come off with the compressor bracket. Here's another plug here. Looks like it's got a clip up right there. I have to get a little screwdriver to help me undo that one. So let me get all these undone. We'll get the lines off. Again, I think all we've used so far is a 10 millimeter. That looks like a 12. So it looks like we'll have to break out something other than a 10 millimeter finally. Oh, we had to use a 14 on the tensioner. So not many tools so far required for this.